There we go.
Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dad's on Life, your weekly episodic, well, not weekly, episodic show, parenting from male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, usually, are my co-host, Keith Bogan.
Decade episodic show. Yeah. Good morning, guys.
Chad Holloway.
Good morning, everybody.
And Dave Dusenberry.
And we just like to catch up every now and then.
Doug, I am sure, is probably off gardening or doing something related to council or something. Or I know he's had a rough couple weeks. He's been pretty beat up, but he's been around. So he's not with us today. So what we're going to do today is do what ends up usually happening. But when we started this show, no one was really going anywhere. So we were all sitting here every week doing this. And it's, how is your summer? What's going on? It's been a couple months since we've been together. But the stars aligned as Keith is home partly to go do something with me later. Yeah, so who wants to kick us off?
Wait a second. I didn't come home to go do that. I came home because I finally got a break from my tour. What are you talking about?
Yeah, whatever.
I will kick it off because I had a very interesting my company is going through a very interesting transformation now. It's a private equity firm. They recently replaced a lot of their senior leadership, and we did a town hall to talk to the masses, 1,600 people who work for the company. And the CEO is new, and the VP of HR, they're new, and they both got on and did a little bit of intro to who they are for the organization. They both used the same expression that I found very interesting. The CEO talked about how he has older children, two of them of which are still in college, and he said something about, and they're almost off my payroll. And then the VP of HR came on, and his kids are like 8 and 11. So he said, my kids are going to be on my payroll for a while. And I'm thinking to myself, my kids are 24 and 21, and they're not necessarily on the payroll. But as Chad has been talking about before we started recording this, do they ever really come off? Does the responsibility ever come off? Yeah, they start paying for more things and all that, but whether they're getting regularly paid or getting paid as consultants, put it that way, they're kind of there a lot, if you will. So I've been touring, trying to be with them as much as I can for their drum corps competition this summer, and even that gets expensive because I'm supposed to be with the corps, and the corps is supposed to pay for everything, but we all kind of contribute and do stuff. Whether the money part ends or not, the parenting never ends, and I find that fascinating. Justin is thinking about moving out and getting his own place. How much do I contribute to that? I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about thinking. Where should he live? What kind of place should he have? How big? How much of his income should he spend and all that? The knowledge of all that stuff is in our heads because we've done it. So how much do we impart to them? How much do they figure out on their own so they can learn, if you will? Drum corps is a fascinating thing, and it's a great educational tool for a lot of stuff, but it doesn't necessarily teach them how to, pay bills and stuff like that. So, there's all sorts of stuff that's been going on this summer. I'm trying to work the full-time job while I'm out there a lot, especially on weekends, but it leaks over into the weeks. I mean, I was there all day Friday, but I also was working when I could get away from the booth to do my job. For me, it's been really challenging. It's going to be, there's a lot of time when I'm working full time and volunteering full time. I need a vacation.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
For tour is over in a week. When we sit here, hopefully, and do this next Sunday, I will technically be done, although I'll still have a 12-hour drive home from like 10-hour drive home from Columbus. But I'll be done with tour. So, I can go, check myself into an insane asylum for a while. It'll be good.
There's your
Cool.
break.
There you go.
So yeah, I've kind of been on the same thing, been traveling a lot, but mine hasn't been as hectic. I don't think ours has been more for personal. So we took a couple weeks and went to Colombia to visit family. So that was fun. But my father-in-law got ill, so I was able to experience, as a healthcare administrator, experience healthcare kind of directly in Colombia. And they, I noticed things like in this hospital where we were, they did not have a waiting room for people. You could only have one guest who went in with the patient. Everybody else had to wait outside, which in the days it's very hot, and if it rains, you're very wet. So it's very, very interesting. And then when I
No
did go
waiting
in one
room?
time,
Yeah,
they
that's weird.
they had to give me directions, right? And they didn't even have signage to direct me to the room. I had to ask like 3 nurses until I finally found it.
got you.
Wow.
We had to pay, which was only $100, but we had to pay before he could be discharged. And they checked. You had to take the receipt to the door, and there's somebody at the door that won't let you leave if you haven't paid. So, and he was there for. Oh, here's the other thing. So he started vomiting and just like vomiting blood. It was just a bad deal. I mean, I thought the guy was gonna die in our Airbnb. So we got him there, and it took him a little bit to get him settled. But then my wife calls me and says, "Oh, he needs a blanket." I'm like, they can't give him a blanket there. Well, no, they don't have. He just gets the sheet that comes with his bed. So if you want a pillow or if you want a blanket or any of that stuff, you got to bring that stuff with you. And then any food, we had to bring food in for him too, but he couldn't eat for a few days because he had the stomach issue, right? But finally, when he could eat, we had to take some bread over. My wife went and picked up some bread and some different things and some juices. So if he wanted any juices or anything like that, we had to take those over there to him as well. But there's just, it's bare bones. They have a bed and they have medical care, and that's it.
Wow.
So we got to experience kind of that piece of it. And then this was in the north side of on the north part of Barranquilla, which is a wealthy part. So that was one of the good hospitals.
Okay. The
Yeah.
wealthier part. I was wondering what you said.
Yeah. So, but it was still just like a crazy experience. So after that, then we left our daughter in Colombia, and she went to spend some time with her aunt and her grandmother, and we went to Europe for a couple of weeks. Anna and I did. So we got to see Barcelona, Ibiza, Amsterdam, Paris, which is where Anna really wanted to go, and then Madrid. So that was a lot of fun. And I'd been to some of those places before, so it's kind of just rehashing. But it's always fun to go and see those places again, even. But I had not been to Ibiza, and Ibiza was a lot of fun. Then we came home, and I was home for a little while, maybe like 3 or 4 days, and then I headed out to Phoenix, where Frankie had finished up his school and was going through an interview process. And actually, I got in on Thursday, and he was notified on Friday that he got the job he wanted. So we started looking at apartments and things like that. And to Keith's point about kind of this investment in our children, both financial and emotional. Like emotionally, like I was so happy that I got to experience like when the lady called and said, "Hey, I got good news for you," and watch that whole process unfold, just kind of silently in the passenger seat of the car. It was awesome. But I guess before that too, going through the interview process, it's you're on pins and needles because you want your kid to get something good, right? And there's a lot of worry. And I was explaining to you guys before the show, there can be as much worry or more worry for your children in my case than for yourself when you're looking for jobs and stuff. It seems like that's more, and you at some point you wonder, oh well, being a parent is tough when you're younger, but I don't think it ever ends. I mean, I think to Keith's point, it continues. They just become different things, and I think in some cases maybe bigger things in their life, right? But we did that. We went after he got his job. Then we started looking at apartments and just trying to find a good place for him to live. And we finally found one, and just kind of going through that process. And, it was fun to go through it together because he'd done it for school, but I think this was a whole different ball game for him now, because we're like looking for a good place to live, good environment. He's living by himself. He's not going to have a bunch of roommates. He's not going to be right next to the college campus. So, he wanted some particular things that were near his apartment. So doing that was good. But I think, I kind of did a little bit of hand holding, but he had to make the ultimate decision. I said, here's my 2 cents. I said, but this is your decision. I said, where you live and what you do here. I said, this is all on you. It's not, I'll help you. I'll tell you what I need. I'll answer your questions. I'll help to guide you. But at the same time, this is yours. So we're successful. He's got an apartment now, and he's getting some furniture on Monday. He can sit on his bed. He doesn't have a chair even in his apartment yet. So, but he's working on it. So he starts work in September. So we're excited.
Yeah,
That's cool, man.
Take notes, Jason, especially because this is coming later for you. It's you want to do. Actually, the instinct is you want to do everything, but the kid wants you to do nothing because they want to be independent. They want to show they can stand up on their own 2 feet. And then you watch and you're like, "Look, you really shouldn't do that. You really, no, that's not a good idea." But where do you turn it off so that you let them make the mistakes? It's brutal. It really is.
And it's funny because that point is something that it's actually one of the things that I love the most about working with my kids is figuring out where that point is. One of the life skills that I tell my kids and I reinforce with them is that when you need help, you need to ask for it. Right. And I let my kids do what they're going to do, follow whatever path they're going to follow. When they ask for help, I'll give it. But I don't just butt in with help if even if I see them struggling, because I need them to know you have to be conscious of where you're at. And if you're stuck, you have to actually ask. You can't just assume that somebody's watching you all the time and will step in and save you, So that part I work on my daughter needed that the most. Like she was very, very passive about help. She'd look like she was struggling, and I'd be like, okay, and I just kind of go about my business. Sometimes she'd get upset that I didn't notice, and I'd be like, well, if you need help, ask. It's not rocket science, but it's uncomfortable to ask for help. So you have to get used to it. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Keith.
And the stakes are higher too when they move out.
Yeah,
it's like I want to furnish my own place. You don't need a $7,000 couch. Now, by the way, Justin has not done this. He's not gone anywhere. But I'm afraid I'm going to be confronted with these when they're 8 or 10 or 12 or 14. They're under the roof. The decisions they make, if they make a mistake, not a big deal. If they're, I'm watching Justin, I'm like, when he moves out, am I going to freak if he buys a really expensive couch? Or am I going to freak if at the neighborhood he chooses? Those are life decisions. Those are, it gets bigger so they may be off the payroll, but they ain't off the payroll in the heart.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in some ways it gets more challenging because then you have to let them make mistakes, but the stakes are higher.
You have to be able to give up control, and that's hard because we as parents want to be able to guide and teach and raise our kids and have them have as little struggle as possible. But ultimately we've seen, struggle is the best way to grow. It's really hard to grow unless you're dealing with something that really pushes you or really challenges you or really makes you think twice about what you're doing or where you're going. Like hitting those walls where you actually have to work your way through it is where you grow,
Absolutely. And Keith, to your point about the furniture. So we were out looking for furniture. So I said, find a furniture store. So I can't remember the name of this place, but we went in and it was obviously out of my price range. It was very expensive things. And so we walk in. I'm like, you think you can afford this stuff? And he goes, no. So, so I was glad to hear that. So there are a couple of guys say, oh, how can we help you? And he goes, well, do you have anything that's more? I can't remember how he said it, but it was funny. That's more affordable or something like that. I said, yes. I said he's looking for something a little more in his price range, and they gave us some recommendations. So we went and looked, and I said, oh yeah, I feel much better with these
Yeah.
here, and you can afford this if you need to, and stuff. So it's all just
Wow.
a matter of time. But we had but talking about the $6,000 couch, that's what we had. He goes, and he even said, he goes, and I think that couch was like actually $7,000. He goes, Dad, he goes, I don't think I would ever buy a $7,000 couch.
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing for me is that Justin so he's almost a year removed from graduate work and finishing school. As he went into that last year, he rented a different apartment down in South Carolina, and we knew he had like 9 months. So I went and I did it for him because he was in a rush. He was beginning the studies and he couldn't focus on furniture acquisition. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I bought a bed, and I bought an old dresser and an old desk, stuff that it'll last a year. It's not a big deal. It's not great, but it's not crap either. But it got the job done, and I helped him basically furnish the place for him. And he was very specific about it. So now when I move out and I get my own place, I don't want to do that. I want to get nice stuff. I want to get something that's stuff that's new. And that's where I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, are you going to be back under my roof in a year?
You're
How much
overthinking it.
investment do you make in the furniture? Where I'm thinking about the next 5 years for him, and where are you actually going to be? And I need to shut that off and just say,
Yeah. Go.
do it, as long as you don't buy the $7,000 couch, if you will. But
Well,
turn it off.
Because I view that as a very positive thing if he says I want to buy nice things, because it indicates also that transition from kind of adolescent thinking into adult thinking, because we'd say we want to buy, you can buy nice things without it being super expensive,
exactly.
So I think that's a positive,
I want him to do all of that. I want him to be, and I want him not to say a word. I have to figure out how not to say a word.
Hard.
Well, okay. I'll interject two things, because you've actually touched on something that constantly comes up in the meetings that I sit in multiple times a week. These are constant conversations and constant things that people talk about. One, you're a chronic overthinker.
Oh God, yes.
Calm the fuck down.
Yep.
Let him live his life as much as you can before you interject and overthink everything. Because in a way, there's a chance you may fuck it up.
Oh, absolutely.
And you don't want to fuck it up for him. And number two, you can't interject your thoughts. They're thoughts.
Yep.
The one thing
Chad has been divorced, and me. This is something Chad may be able to understand. Would my thoughts be different if I had remarried and there was somebody else in the house and there's another focus? So I'd be like, go ahead, live your life. But I have this 4-bedroom house. I live alone, and there's a part of me that's like, you can just stay here for a while and put a lot of money in the bank. There's no rush to go anywhere.
Sure.
So I'm struggling with that. But if somebody else was in the house, would I be more willing to get out of the house? I want to have fun with whoever I'm with, that kind of thing.
No, that's that's completely fair, because that's my life.
What are you talking about? You're not with anybody. I've known you for 5 years. You've been with one. Well, for like 5 seconds, you're with one person, sort of.
You're talking about me, right?
Come on.
Right.
Yeah,
so I don't have that. I don't have that.
Married.
I am very happily single.
Other two are married.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm rushing to get somebody in my house. I'm enjoying the fact that Justin's here. I'm actually looking forward to Jeremy being here in about 9-10 months because I know he's coming back under the roof. There's no question about it. But is that enjoyment just it's fun to be hanging with my kids, or is it more I love the fact that I can have them here, and is it a control thing again? I don't know.
You also have company that you love and you trust, and that matters.
It's both. Now, the other thing is you have to realize that, and I think you know this, but I think you forget it. We all tend to forget about it. There's a saying: best thing about getting sober is you get your feelings back. The worst thing about getting sober is you get your feelings back.
Feelings back. Yep.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And you can't be punished for your thoughts. If you could, most of us probably would be on death row. We're being
I would have
totally
already been
honest here.
executed. Are you kidding?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're just thoughts. Don't overanalyze them. Don't.
Yeah.
And stop. If me telling you to stop overthinking, no, it's not going to happen. But I'm just saying, if you're conscious of that, you're doing it. It may help.
And
curb
I'm very conscious of it.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
For me, it does. For me, knowing knowing that I'm doing it has helped.
Yeah.
Because, and the other thing is, and I see you doing it, but you're not doing it as much as you used to. So that's a good thing.
Oh.
Is you bottle shit up. You bottle shit up too much.
That's a conversation we're going to have tonight.
That needs to stop.
Yeah. And it's funny because that line actually is you said a couple of things there, Jason, that are kind of key to how my summer's been going. One, getting your feelings back, and two, not bottling things up. So it's been an interesting year so far here, and especially summertime here at my house. We started out the summer with one of my two dogs getting cancer. That hit at the end of May. And it really impacted a lot of things. So this summer, dealing with that, had to clean out my mom's house down in Delaware and prepare it for a tenant that moved in July. But I was down there at the house in Delaware cleaning it out, and I had my wife and my two dogs there with me for most of the week. And then Thursday night that week, my wife and took the two dogs back home so she could pick up the boys from school the next day. And I just stayed down in Delaware because my brother and my sister were due to meet me on Saturday morning to help me go through more stuff. And that Friday that she had gone back, she brought my one dog back to the doctor to get him checked out. And that's when I found out he had cancer. So I found out he had cancer while I was all alone in my mom's house cleaning it out. Not the best place to be.
No.
So we dealt with that, and that hung a lot over how the rest of the summer went. He basically only lasted another month. We had to put him down on 4th of July. And that was sad. But I will say, bringing this around to my kids, we actually, I'm getting choked up now just thinking about it. We actually worked through that experience actually as a family. So when we went to the vet office to put my dog down, my three kids and my wife, all of us were in the room together, kind of working through that together. When the doctor came in to do what they needed to do, we were all there. We comforted each other, and they were very, very brave. I give them, that is not an easy experience to deal with. And that's something that, we talk about heartbreak and struggle to give you the tools to grow. That was an experience that they were very brave to go through, and we did it as a family. We did that. And then later in the month, third week of July, every year for forever, my parents, and after my dad died, my mom especially would would either take my daughter or my sons or all three of them for a week vacation at a Christian camp down in South Jersey called America's Keswick in Manchester. And they always had a great time. It was really cool. Last year in July, at the end of Keswick, my mom, of course, put the deposit down for this year for everything. And then when she passed away in November, my daughter actually stepped up and said, "Listen, I'm keeping that reservation. I want to keep that reservation. I want to go to Keswick for the week, and I want to do it with my two brothers." So that's exactly what they did. They took the week, spent the week at Keswick, really in my mom's honor. You know,
Right.
like it. That was really cool. You
How
know,
old is she now?
they learned a lot about grief and loss and growth, I think, this past year. Pretty wild stuff.
Hey,
22?
how old is she now?
She's
22?
21. She'll be 22 in November. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, the fact that she stepped up, she wanted to do that and take care of that. It's funny because she had said that I want to do it. Like, I know the deposit's there, but I'm gonna finish paying off the balance for it. I want to do this. I want to run point on it, is what she told me. I'm like, great, awesome. So I gave her the chance to run with it. We won't talk about the fact that the Saturday before camp, she still needed to have the balance paid off, and I just took care of it on one of my cards. But you know what? I gave her the chance to run with it, and she fell short. I took care of it. I said, not a problem. Just give me more than a day's notice when this happens. Just let me know. But it meant a lot. I think it really meant a lot to me, and I think it meant a lot to my kids to take that week and just do that together, the three of them in the one room that they normally get. And it's funny because even my youngest was like, there were times that he was so like in the habit of going upstairs to the room that they'd stay at, going in and seeing grandma there and opening the door and then not seeing grandma there. It was kind of like, it was hard, you know. But yeah, that's kind of been the big theme of this year, is kind of working through grieving and loss and kind of getting back in touch with some feelings to kind of process that stuff and not just go headfirst into like practicality and taking care of logistics and everything like that. So finding that balance. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's a huge positive that your daughter just indicated that she wanted to still do that. I mean, and to some extent, and you facilitated that, which I think is awesome. I mean, that's the thing, because it's something I think we were talking earlier about. They need to ask if they need something. And I think that was a situation where it sounds like at least she, or probably all three, needed something.
Yeah.
And you were able to come in as the parent, right, and make sure that they got that.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's our role as parents, is make sure our kids get what they need, kind of financially, physically, emotionally, kind of spiritually, all the way around. I mean, there's so many dimensions to what we do as parents, and I think that's just another great example of good parenting.
Yeah. Now I give them all the credit in the world. Like, I had my kids basically. It's funny. I told them I didn't do that for them, but like, even like, my 15 and 17-year-old, I was like, listen, grab some suitcases, pack your bags, make sure you have everything you need for the week. I did not check their bags before they left. I was like, I'm telling you, you guys know what you need better than I do. Pack your bags, make sure you have everything you need. When they left on Sunday, they discovered I had said for 2 weeks prior, if you need anything that you don't have, you have to tell me and we'll go shopping and we'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Right? But you got to tell me. So they told me a couple of things, and I'm like, okay. So we went and picked those things up. But then Sunday, now they were supposed to have everything packed by Friday. I was like, pack everything by Friday. This way, if you're missing anything, we can take care of it on Saturday if all else fails. Oh, yeah. We're packed. We're good. Sunday at like an hour before they're supposed to leave, they're like, oh, hey, do you have this? Or, hey, do you have that? And I'm like, so you know what I told them? I said, no, you're gonna have to buy it on your way there because the three of them went down. They basically all went down together. I'm like, you guys are gonna have to stop someplace. Stop at Walgreens to pick up what you need, or like I gave you an opportunity. If you needed something, you had to ask me in this time period. I've told you many times, and you didn't. So now you have to figure it out.
I swear you live in my house.
I was just thinking back to a trip we took to Costa Rica when Frankie was probably 12 or 14. And by then I was kind of letting him pack his own stuff because we've been on several trips alone. You got everything? Are you sure? Yep, I got everything, Dad. So we get there and he's like, oh, I forgot my underwear. I'm like, we're on a trip for 2 weeks and you don't have any underwear. What are you thinking?
Or not thinking, as the case may be.
What's that?
That's a commando marathon right there. Damn.
Yeah, well, what we ended up doing is luckily we had access to a washer. So he wore some of mine that were giant on him.
That's funny.
Oh. Man.
But you just, I mean, the only thing you can do at a lot of those things is just laugh, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yep.
And I look at somebody like my wife who's had a lot of challenges in her life, and it's like, well, we got to laugh, because if we're not laughing, we're crying.
Yeah. But yeah, as the summer winds down, or now that we're in August and kind of in the home stretch of summer, huh?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I find that statement personally offensive. I have a personal philosophy that I'm going to invoke upon you. I'm not going to suggest it. Summer does not end until the last pitch of the baseball season. So for anybody who thinks that this upcoming holiday in September marks anything, go screw yourselves. Talking the last day or two of October. You got plenty of time, no panicking here. And if anybody talks about pumpkin latte, they can go themselves.
That's awesome.
I can even do you one better. There's a guy I know who has a business, and he runs it out of Idaho for half the year, and he runs it out of Chile for half the year. So whenever it's coming towards the end of summer at that location, because remember we're on opposite cycles, right? So he'll move to the other place. So it's endless summer for him.
I want that life. I want that life.
But
winter. Oh,
and his daughter was pretty interesting. So when she was probably 15 or 16, and she was giving some sort of speech. I remember I saw a snippet of it, and she's like, "In my 30 summers," and she's 15, but she had 2 summers a year.
Nice.
It's amazing.
I like that.
But he has a kayaking business. He was a world-class kayaker for years. So
that sounds like the life I want. It really does.
Me too. Stay out of the cold.
Yeah, man.
So, Dave, I do want. I'm not apologizing, because I did interrupt your flow because you were saying something silly about summer winding down. I just wanted to correct your perspective, but then you can get to what you were talking about.
I appreciate it. I do stand corrected. Sometimes I forget that baseball still exists, because it's just a time killer until football season starts.
Yeah, but your football season is off cycle, so what the hell? It's not. It doesn't start at the same time as the real football. Oh, sorry, never mind.
No, but look, real football is ready to start. I am ready.
There you go.
In Brock we trust.
Oh God.
But yeah,
you've heard of the sophomore slump, right?
What's that?
You heard of the sophomore slump, right?
I mean, he's Mr. Irrelevant. I keep my expectations are very, they're moderate, but I still like the kid.
Besides, he has an amazing team around him. It'd be hard to fail.
That team is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, but yeah, it's like this with this next season cycle, we'll call it, approaching. I'm not going to use those nasty words that begin EOS. You know, at least in terms of my kids, it's going to be cool to see because my older boy Jay is going into senior year of high school, so we're talking colleges and figuring that out. He's got his eye on going to Temple, which is pretty cool. I would love it if he went to Temple and for the first 2 years stayed here and just commuted back and forth. He'll hop the train and went into for classes. He could save a ton of money. He could get a good education, and selfishly, I could get a lot more time with him. That would be a win-win across the board. But we'll see how it goes. But it's going to be odd because when this next year comes to a conclusion and he goes and he starts college, it's going to be really the first time in a while that he and his brother will basically be separated for a couple of years. That's going to be weird. That's going to be weird. So like now it's like we're kind of taking the time now to kind of prepare for that, figuring out how the logistics of that are going to work and what we're going to do. My thing is, I like to, when the moment comes, it is what it is. Until the moment gets here, I like to be as prepared as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, we're thinking a lot about that, going through the whole college thing. I tried doing the college thing with my daughter. That's not what she wanted to do. Didn't work out. She needed to live life a little bit, fall on her ass first because she needs to learn hard. I love her, but she needs to learn hard. So that's what she's doing. And we'll see what path Jay takes to do with this stuff. So it'll be interesting, going through it from a different perspective and working through that,
So, it's been fairly normal around here with girls in camp. Wrestling stopped end of June, early July. We'll see what happens with that from there. Sadie's going to join the Mat Rats. I don't know what Delena's going to do. We'll see. Yeah. Last year it started that she wasn't going to wrestle again, and by October she'd change her mind. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. They both, Delane is in the travel group in camp this year. So there's been a couple late night pickups and which is different, but it is, and also having to pick up the girls more often than this year than not because my mother-in-law, who works at the camp that they go to, hasn't worked a couple of weeks this summer so far, so I've had to pick them up a couple of times. And then the guy who arranges all the travel is a friend of mine from bowling, and I think the guy who I knew from bowling, who I've become friends with over the last few years. So I get to see him when I pick up Delana, and she's been in a lot of interesting places. They're going to a Patriots game on Wednesday. She was on the Spirit Cruise on Friday, which she said she had a good time. Some of them she's had a good time. Some of them she was kind of bored. They did the Delaware River tubing last week, and she was bored as shit, which doesn't surprise me. Even with a group of friends, she said it just was boring, which it is. It can be. It's kind of like just sitting on the lazy river, but sometimes, depending on currents, it can be even lazier than a lazy river. Where you can sit there and barely move.
To us, it sounds fantastic. Like
that does sound really good.
Quiet. But to the kids, of course.
They need a different level of stimulation at their
Mhm.
age than we do.
I would be in heaven if I could just get on like a canoe or a raft or something like that and drift down a river right now. Oh, that would be paradise.
Um, Delana, Sadie it seems to has a couple of friends here and there, but Delana, um, a couple weeks ago, she went and sat in the living room, which we got a new couch. Um,
Was it $7,000?
not even close.
Did Elvis like it?
It's covered. He barely goes in there.
I could.
Um, it's been we actually sat in the living room last night and watched SummerSlam. We actually get into the one thing we've been doing mostly um for a while in a second, but we a couple weeks ago she went in the living room and I said, okay, why is she sitting in the living room, which she's done a couple of times recently. um she's been going on group chats with her friends. I think I don't know if they call each other or they use the a messenger of some sort, but they've done it a few times, and that's a good thing. Because um, with my issues and introversion when I was younger, it scares the shit out of me. But
Mhm.
um, she's she's opening up a little bit. We've been binge watching Stranger Things. We've got one episode left.
Okay.
The problem is it's 2.5 hours. How in the hell do you have a 2.5 hour episode of a TV show? Really?
It's a movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's as long as Harry Potter or as long as a Marvel movie. It's like, oh, come on, you have to break this up over 2 days. Um, what else? She finally finished the entire series of South Park, um,
Mhm.
which she's been working on for I think since February. Which sitting there thinking, you realize that 26 seasons. Granted, they're only 22 minutes, but it's 26 seasons. It's a lot of fucking time.
Ugh.
We also watched the movie. That was probably May. I think we watched the movie, the South
Bigger,
Park movie.
longer, and uncut.
Yeah, but I was kind of like, well, this one's a little rough. Then I realized that I was sitting there watching an episode of South Park on Max. It's all unedited anyway.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Because they said, fuck. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait, did I just hear that? I'm like, oh, that's right, streaming. So I was like, oh, okay.
Ride with it.
Well, I think from minute one when we started this show, I think I probably said it, maybe not the first episode, but along the way, very early on. Um, I'm of the philosophy of I would rather the girls call somebody a fucking asshole than be the fucking asshole. So,
The one
um,
the one thing I will say about watching shows with questionable language, uh, I I tell this about to my boys who watch these shows, watch these videos, listen to these songs. Enjoy what you're going to enjoy. Know your audience.
yeah. Oh
Instead
yeah.
of saying what's going on these, be aware of who your audience is in real life at the time.
Sure. Which for the large part they do.
Yeah.
With us is one thing. I'm not worried. I don't care.
Fuck yeah.
So much. Neither does Elise. And I mean, the couple of people that they know that they've encountered that are friends of mine, especially from the program, are pretty tame. Um, there's a bunch that you know they have the mouths of sailors, and when the girls do meet them, it's kind of like, okay, whatever, it's not a big deal. Um, so Yeah, it's been busy. Very busy summer. I have two things coming up next week. I have to go to a sober fest for literature, being the literature chair for my district in AA. I've got to volunteer for some stuff. I'll be in Regular Park all day. Saturday. Not looking forward to it, but what it is what it is at this point. Um, Other than that, yeah, it's been busy, very busy summer.
Yeah, you just talked about something that really struck a chord with me, and not to go down the rabbit hole of a completely different topic. But you talked
Too
about
late.
binge watching something, and in this house, Justin and I for months have been trying to binge watch our way through a show that I've come to really like, Grey's Anatomy. And it's just a fictional show, but it's a very popular show, and a lot of people really appreciate it. And we're just at the point now where we're going through the beginning of the first year of the pandemic, the worst of it, and they did a really good job on the show of working it into the plot. I mean,
Oh,
really,
cool.
all the pain, all the loss, and think about it from a hospital perspective, where it's a good group of doctors who takes every single loss personally, and it's
Hmm.
absolutely agonizing. And then it enters into the George Floyd murder as well, and they did a fabulous job with that. And we're also watching the offshoot Station 19 that came out of that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I had not watched anything. I'm not a regular TV watcher, and when I do, I typically watch it recorded later at a different time.
Hmm.
So during the pandemic, we all lived through that, but I hadn't really seen any media, any shows, anything like that that had any focus on it at all. And going through this show by show was extraordinarily difficult. It was because you were living it again in the real time that the characters were, watching them not know what would happen in the next episode, watching them not sure of how long this would go on, and how much more loss there would be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really hard to watch that. It was some of the more thought-provoking and emotion-provoking TV that I had watched in a long time. It's just Grey's Anatomy. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a life and death thing, or is it? But it was really, really
Yeah.
well done. And to go through it again,
Mm-hmm.
I think we have this instinct when we lose something, when we go through something that causes difficulty and grief and all that. At some point, you get to stage 5 of the grief, and you're like, okay, I can move on now. And then when you sort of like reach back and you do it again, that's hard. And you see it all over again.
They did a really
Yeah.
good job with that. I'll touch on that. The first episode of that show I ever saw was right after the Super Bowl. Long time ago. Long time ago. It was the episode you might remember when I'm talking about, Keith, the episode with the artillery shell that ended up pretty much as a bomb in a guy. They were doing a reenactment.
There
They
have
were
been so
doing a
many,
reenactment and
there
ends
have
up
been
being a
so many
bomb
foreign
essentially
objects that have wound up inside people in that show. It's
in
hysterical.
him. Yeah, it ends up being a bomb. Ends up being a live round somehow. Christina Ricci was actually a medic in that episode. Thinking about that, of the original, well, not the original, but Wednesday Addams from the 90s Addams Family was and medic on Grey's Anatomy for like one episode or two episodes, and then was gone. That was a moment. That was a point when they were bringing in guest stars of. They were in that. Yeah, it was. It's always been one of those shows that. And how many times? I mean, the worst. There were so many episodes of that show of just insanity. Delana was born. Delana was born with the musical episode. That was the
Okay.
day Delana was born. and they started, and the first song they sing is from, oh God, I can't remember. Snow Patrol is Just Forget the World, or if you Will You Lay With Me? I forgot what the name of the song is, but it's just unbelievable. And some of these people, you don't realize the talents they have singing this song. It's just like and the way they're singing it to her, I'm like, holy shit, because you think she's like, she thinks she's having these issues of she's been in an accident, a car accident, and it's one of the doctors, and it's just the insanity of that scene of this is we actually ended up changing. I was watching it at first, and we ended up changing it to um, the Dodgers Giants game.
Well, it's a good transition. I mean, it works.
Because it was too much for Elise to try to watch after having Delana, which not ironically, but that was the same game where there was a murder outside the stadium after the game. So, and it was between fans of both teams.
Right, I remember that.
Forgot what the story was exactly. I don't remember exactly what the story was, but yeah. And then going home and watching that episode, that was a really, really great episode, but a hard one to watch. Partly because some of the people can't sing to save their fucking lives, but yeah, that's been very interesting show of how they always keep it topical. They always have. They always will. What's left of it. I know. I think they're gonna do like 1 or 2 more seasons. It sounds like series isn't over, but it's yeah, that's an interesting one.
Well, for me, it was really interesting because Justin had seen the shows before. He's already
Mhm.
binge watched his way through it, and he
Mhm.
felt so strongly about the series that he wanted me to watch it. So that's it. Like I did, I was a big 24 fan, and I'd seen it straight through once, and I made sure I watched every single episode with them. And so he's sort of turning the tables now. He's watching every episode with me, and he's watching my emotional reactions, knowing what's coming, because he's seen it all. And you talk about me bottling things up. Watching that show, I really became keenly aware of how much of the emotional torment of the pandemic and the George Floyd murder that I had bottled up, and it started coming out again when I was watching that. But I was also keenly aware of Justin sitting next to me and the maturity level of sort of, he's watching me. I can tell he's watching me, and how he's letting me work through it as opposed to interceding, which when one person is in distress, the other person typically will say something or do something, and he's got that level-headedness to let me work through it without interceding, which is pretty interesting to see. I mean, I think that if he was much younger, it would probably have really upset him to see what I went through to watch that.
Yeah.
But he's got to a level where he understands the emotional requirements, if you will, in situations like that.
Yeah, um, that's a pretty interesting. That's, like I said, that's been a pretty interesting series all along. Um, I'll tell you the interesting, the funny thing is, um, I remember the first time that I was watching the show, and this actress turned up on it, and I went, I know her. I know her. I know she's an actress, and I know her from something. What the hell do I know her from? What is her name? Sarah Ramirez.
That does sound familiar, and I can't remember why I know that person.
Wait a second. And I go back and I go looking through my CDs, and I find Spamalot's, the original Broadway cast recording of Spamalot. So I put it on.
Of
And I
all the
hear that voice. And I said, she was the Lady of the Lake. Sarah Ramirez was the Lady of the Lady in the Lake in the original Broadway cast of Spamalot. That was the first time I had ever heard of her. Which actually they just announced is coming back. There's a revival of Spamalot. Obviously, most of the cast, the original cast of Spamalot, could do it for a revival. There's one person who can't, and that's Tim Curry. He can't. Tim Curry's not in the best of shape, so he's not. He wouldn't. They're not. They're going to recast it. Could there be one or two that end up from the original cast back in it? Yeah, I could see that, but it would be amazing if Sarah did, but I doubt that'll happen. But yeah, that was the first time I had ever heard of Sarah Ramirez. I'm like, oh wow, okay. I think she's doing. I forgot what she's on now, and something that's kind of unusual for her. Might be Orange is the New Black. I don't know, something like that. So we're actually kind of button up against this. Anybody have anything they want to add before we wrap this up?
Good to be back.
It is good to be back.
It is.
Hey, let's do this again in another couple months.
Yes, perfect.
We
See
will.
you in November, yeah.
We will obviously try to get back on a little bit more regular schedule
Yeah.
of doing this. Definitely miss doing this. We had done it for so long, so consecutively, and then it's summer, and we usually end up doing breaks in between here and there because it's just the key word of this entire show is life.
Yeah.
And we can't, there's a window to do it next Sunday. I want to tell you that it can be done.
Oh, Jesus. What Keith is referring to is the fact that he's going to probably be pulling from Indianapolis, pulling into Ohio to drop Jeremy off at school after being up for probably about 30 hours at that point.
36, yeah.
But obviously we're not going to push him into anything. But
Oh, wait a minute, let me
because we
think
don't-
this through. We have to check out of our hotel room at 6:30 in the morning on Saturday. We go through all the finals at the event. And then I'll drive overnight to get him to school. It'll be 8 o'clock in the morning. So at that point, yeah, well, it'll probably only be at that point about 27, 28 hours. So, I can handle that. I just did 36 hours, for a different overnight a few days ago. I can handle this stuff, not a problem.
You might as well be a Bering Sea crab fisherman, for God's sakes. Damn.
Yeah, really. Yes, you're absolutely right. Except for the fact of physical work could be a major issue for him at his age.
Would snoring on the call be allowed?
Just delegate ownership of the meeting. We'll just mute you. It'll be fine.
That can be done. That can be done.
That's a good place for us to wrap this up because I've actually got to try to get outside and finish the lawn before Keith and I head out to Metallica this afternoon.
Yeah, have a good time at the show, man.
Have fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
That should be fun.
It will be. It'll be the biggest thing that I've done. Well, no, Ed Sheeran. It'll be one of the bigger things that I've done since I got sober 3 years ago, which is not an issue. No big deal.
Do you look at it differently
just
than
another-
do you look at it differently than Dead and Company that we did a few weeks ago?
These people will be even crazier.
I can't wait.
Hey, you think the Deadheads are crazy? You have not seen
No,
anything.
they weren't crazy. They were stoned. Come on, you can barely move. They were so stoned.
My friend that we were trying to meet up with told me something that I had no idea. There's actually an AA meeting at the venue before the show. Did not know that.
Are we going?
No. At all the Dead shows, there's an AA meeting. So from all of us here at Dad's on Life, take care, everybody, and of course, Keith, Eat my shorts.
Shorts eaten.
Have a good one, guys.